Hello everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Boss Economics World. Today's topic might hit hard for those of you closely following higher education, political ideology, or the current state of the US economy, but don't worry, we're here to break it down clearly and shed some light on the real issues behind this unfolding drama. Let me be blunt, Harvard University has found itself at the center of a political, social, and economic storm. And for those of you thinking, wait, what does this have to do with the economy? Well, trust me, this situation goes way beyond higher educational policies. It reflects deeper economic and social fractures across the US in 2024. So, today we'll break down the tension, focusing on how economic stress, government interference, elite influence, and ideological divides are laying bare the weaknesses in not just Harvard, but the entire US education and political system. First, let's set the stage by revisiting Kamala Harris's loss in the 2024 election. Harris lost in a landslide, ceding not only all 7 swing states but also the popular vote to none other than the return of Donald Trump. The aftermath? Higher education institutions like Harvard became emotional shock absorbers for many upset by the election results. The economic problems at hand? A massively politicized higher education system, extreme ideological divides, and a serious waste of resources on what many argue are non-academic, activist pursuits. It's no secret that many university faculties, particularly at elite institutions like Harvard, lean strongly liberal. According to recent surveys, a whopping 13% of Harvard seniors in 2024 identified as conservative or very conservative, leaving over 3/4 of the student body, and most faculty members, leaning heavily liberal. This already imbalanced ideological landscape was thrown into sharp relief post-election, when some professors, struggling with the outcome, baked lemon bars to console students. Lemon bars? Does this seem like the response of an institution tasked with shaping the future leaders of America? This is more than just a ridiculous anecdote. It speaks to a deep-rooted problem of infantilization. Students, supposed to be budding scholars and practical, real-world problem solvers, are treated as delicate, overly sensitive individuals. But this infantilization is not the true danger here, we need to zoom out. This issue masks a much larger storm brewing over academia, one with profound economic and societal consequences. Harvard is ground zero in the battle over the politicization of American universities. This is an institution that has become a symbol of what critics argue is the leftist takeover of academia, where maintaining social justice bona fides seems to be prioritized over rigorous scholarship and intellectual debate. This brings us to Christopher Rufo, a conservative political activist who views Harvard as key to reshaping the system. He claims that if the Trump administration can push Harvard into real reform, other universities, representing billions of dollars in collective endowments and millions in federal grants, will follow suit. On one hand, universities should be places where diverse viewpoints and tough conversations happen. But instead, many are turning into echo chambers, and for critics, this stifling of free discourse is already having negative economic implications. Think about it. Education should be about innovation, critical thinking, and original contributions, and yet when entire faculties are boxed into a narrow worldview, they're less likely to innovate or critically engage with new ideas. This sort of intellectual stagnation hurts economic growth. Innovation suffers when academia, one of the primary sources of research and development, becomes politically constrained. Now let's not forget, Harvard's reach, and revenue pool, is monumental, with its jaw-dropping $53 billion endowment. This isn't just about politics. It's about where that money goes, how it's used, and what economic repercussions are already being felt across the wider financial apparatus of higher education. This tension reflects much more complex issues across U.S. society, namely, deep divides over whether institutions like Harvard, and their billion-dollar tax privileges, are good economic actors or instead insular forces of elitism. J.D. Vance, now Trump's vice president, claimed that university endowments, like Harvard's, are cancers on American society. He's proposed massive tax hikes on these endowments as a cure to this unchecked elitism. What does that mean economically? For Harvard, it could mean major cuts to its discretionary spending, particularly in areas like faculty recruitment, specialized research programs, and campus services. This direct targeting of large endowments is no abstract political jab. It's reflective of a broader societal resentment toward the concentration of wealth in elite institutions, and their insular worlds far removed from real economic reality. This resentment is not without merit. Over $700 million of Harvard's revenue last year came from the federal government, essentially meaning taxpayers, who may have never even set foot on a college campus, are helping fund a disproportionately wealthy institution. What happens when this funding is slashed? Harvard's funding model is heavily reliant on benefactors and federal appropriations. If either one of those pipelines dries up due to federal cuts or donors' displeasure, it could create a financial shortfall that ripples through the entire private education sector. Let's talk business. Harvard, alongside many high-profile universities, has publicly committed to diversity, equity, and inclusion (DEI) programs. Rufo and other conservative critics want these DEI programs to fund it completely before federal funds continue flowing to such schools. Despite fierce liberal opposition to such measures, this is consistent with the incoming administration's economic policy goals: reduce federal resources used to bolster what they consider woke ideology, and redirect it to sectors they believe have more tangible payoffs for American families and businesses. And this brings us to the broader economic struggle playing out. Essentially, Harvard, and other elite universities, have for years been playing an influential role in shaping future elites who dominate finance, tech, government, and more. But institutions primarily catering to today's wealthy, social elites are increasingly being perceived as out of touch with the average American. Ken Griffin, who has poured over $500 million into Harvard, has pulled his money away until the university returns to roles of preparing practical leaders and problem solvers, not just pushing ideological activism. With the Republicans' control of government in D.C., this ideological battle could soon transform into economic warfare, creating uncertainty for students, faculty, and the broader university industry research complex that relies on federal funding and business partnerships. Shifting gears slightly, let's explore something that grabbed global attention: student protests over Gaza, Israel, and broader Middle East conflicts. The level of protest activity at Harvard hit a fever pitch this year, with students camped out in Harvard Yard for weeks protesting Israel's retaliatory bombing campaign, following a deadly attack by Hamas. At the center was Harvard president, Alan Garber, who balanced trying to keep order on campus without antagonizing protesters or enabling their demands regarding Harvard's ties with Israel. One protest group grotesquely depicted Garber, who is Jewish, with horns in anti-Semitic imagery. Now, while universities should indeed foster tough debates on world issues, Harvard's challenges go beyond activism. They reveal a tough economic conundrum. Universities are becoming the staging grounds for political turmoil, but it comes at a steep financial cost. Protests disrupt operations, damage relations with key donors, and ultimately degrade the educational mission of these institutions. And don't forget, Harvard's brand as a center of excellence has huge economic value. If the brand is tarnished, everything is on the line. What business would want to partner with a school caught in daily campus chaos? Alongside Garber's appointment, there have been overtures to rein in the situation, but with limited success. Banning students from camping on campus, limiting amplified sounds, restricting the use of chalk, and issuing vague threats of discipline, these are hardly effective responses to the broader pattern of unrest. The failure to control and direct protest movements on campus will hurt universities' efforts to project stability and authority before their donations and federal funding flows. Now, some of you might be wondering, how does this impact Main Street economics? Doesn't this sound more like intra-campus squabbles and elite discord? Well, here's how it matters. Harvard's situation is a microcosm for the larger U.S. problem. The polarization and radicalization happening within universities has real economic ramifications, especially when those universities are responsible for innovating, driving productivity, and pioneering industries that help sustain U.S. financial leadership globally. When intellectual spaces become monolithic or politically extreme, they stifle innovation and foster mediocrities who are good at Twitter outrage, not real-world problem-solving. It's a slow-moving economic disaster, masked under layers of wealth and prestige, that eventually corrupts the pipeline between academia, government, and industry. Meanwhile, the socio-economic divide is coming into sharper focus. Harvard and other elite universities are continuing to foster elites, and these elites are increasingly detached from average Americans. The resentment this fosters trickles into financial decisions, whether it be elections, donor pullbacks, or billionaires like Griffin refusing to contribute to educational endowments that previously seemed untouchable. So, what should we take away from all this? Harvard's situation is not unique, it is emblematic of broader failings in America today. The erosion of free speech, ideological uniformity, and campus turbulence reflect underlying economic tensions, where wealth, power, and influence are concentrated in the hands of a few, and average citizens increasingly feel economically and politically excluded. What am I saying here? Simple. The hypocrisy, over-politicization, and mass coddling that we see at Harvard are just the start. The siding with particular ideologies that exclude key parts of society results in deepening economic inequalities, bad education policies, and stagnation in innovation. Yet, these trends are now facing a serious economic backlash, as major political shifts will reshape higher education financing, not just at Harvard, but across U.S. universities. Hold on tight, everyone, because the storm brewing is much bigger than just academia, it's about the economic direction of the entire country. As always, leave your thoughts in the comments section below. I'm Boss, signing off. Catch you next time.